Hey everybody, how y'all doing? I wanted to chime in on Pete Hegseth. If you don't know, that's the name that was dropped for the Secretary of Defense. The Secretary of Defense is in charge of the Department of Defense. The Department of Defense is the largest organization single-handedly in the entire world. It has over 2.6 million employees, half of those military, the other half civilian contractors, with an annual budget of over $800 billion. That's a lot of responsibility for somebody who may not be qualified. Let's check it out. So, usually that's reserved for a general, a 4-star general, 5-star general. In this case, he's neither. He's a captain. Well, he was a captain in the Army and served in the reserves. I heard that he even got up to a major. That might have been in the reserves, his rank there, but in the Army, he was a captain, served in Iraq, served in Afghanistan, and was stationed at Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. He's a veteran, and he is pro-veteran. There's no greater supporter of veterans than, say, maybe Gary Sinise. So he definitely is in the know when it comes to veterans. He is what you would consider a nationalist. He's about America and America first. A family man, father of 7. I don't know how long he's been married to his wife, but I'm pretty sure it's a good while. Well educated, well spoken. He got his master's from Harvard University. He doesn't like their woke ideology, so he actually ripped it up and mailed it back to them. He stated that he hasn't heard from them since. A New York Times bestseller, and also a contributor on Fox, the cable station. He also is a host on I believe on the weekend show. Like I said, very well spoken, very smart man. He can hold dialogue with the best of them. Now, where does he not qualify? In what areas? Well, Judge Napolitano was speaking the other day, and he said a good Secretary of Defense is somebody who can balance out the powers of the president. So in the case that the president were to have his finger on the nuclear button, a good Secretary of Defense will go and say, Mr. President, we can find another way. But in this case, Judge Napolitano doesn't think that Pete Hegseth would actually do that, because Pete Hegseth is a yes man. One, he's pro-Trump. He's been pro-Trump since the first time Donald Trump ran. And this time he was a pro-Trump also. He was slated to be in part of Trump's last cabinet, but he wasn't. They thought he was too young. But time has passed, and now he's being slated to be the Secretary of Defense. It's a huge responsibility. But would he tell the president to stand down? Some people say no. He would go right along with it. Be an enabler instead of a balance. He would be an enabler. And that's a bad thing, especially when Israel wants to take us to war. So let's talk about Israel. He is pro-Israel all the way. He believes in Israel with all his heart. He believes that the Israeli people are the chosen ones of God. And he is willing to go to the mats for them. And that's a mistake, because Israel continues to commit genocide. And all the Middle Eastern countries, all the Muslim countries are lined up against them right now. And they will take America to World War III. They will. Because they want to fight Iran. They want to attack Iran, and knowing that we'll jump in and help them. And if we jump into Iran, Russia's not going to accept that. They have said we are not going to accept that, and they are going to make a stand. Israel is the path to World War III. And Israel is doing everything in their power to get America involved. When asked, would he send his own sons to go fight in Ukraine? He said no, he wouldn't. He said, I'm over there. The oldest is 14 right now, so he's still got 4 years, but I'll readdress that in 4 years, and leave it up to him if he would want to do that. But I would tell him no. So he said that right there. He wouldn't send his own son. But this is a person who will send your sons and your daughters. He's against women in the military. He says it takes away from morale. And he explains elaborate in detail on how it takes away from the war readiness. But he is a Zionist. And that's his single greatest downfall. And that he's a Trump yes man. And he won't be that balance. Does he know the key people, the important people? Yeah, he has some very, very important, influential, intelligent ears that he can just speak into, and they'll speak back to him. And he can make that operational. He can revamp the military and bring it up to a status that we once had. Right now, retention is nil. People are getting out left and right. Recruiting, it's just diminished beyond the pale. Nobody wants to go into the military anymore. You have, from my knowledge, my experience, you have poor white boys, poor black boys, and poor brown boys. All young kids trying to get out of their situation in life, trying to get out of their communities, their hoods, and go into the military. And the military, it brings you discipline. It can take you all over the world. And I am pro-military. I'm from a family of all military. Do I support the military? Wholeheartedly. I mean, if it weren't for the men and women who have died on foreign soil, our freedoms would have long been tread on, long ago. Our freedom of speech, our everyday freedoms, the smallest of the freedoms, it's all afforded to us by what those brave men and women sacrificed their lives for. So yes, I am pro-military, but I am not for sending young men and women to die on foreign soil in vain. And so many young Americans have died in vain. 20 plus year wars because it wasn't thought out. Because the white politician in Washington, I say white man because it's all pretty much all white, male dominated patriarch that decides these things and sends 1 million men to fight at war and doesn't have a key good plan in place. They say that China and the rest of the world, when they make out plans, they think in 1,000 years, and we think in 3 to 4 years. That's how far we plan out. So there's a huge disconnect there. Pete Hegseth, I've watched him speak, and he is definitely against the woke agenda. He is against the LGBTQ agenda. If you could say white Christian nationalist, that's what Pete Hegseth is. So would he make a strong Secretary of Defense? In my opinion, no. He's underqualified. He's a yes man to Donald Trump. He will not send his own sons with this current military. He says if he revamps it and changes it up, then maybe he would. But so, Now, like I said, he has a lot of great things going for him. He's well spoken. He's an author. He's a veteran. He's a military man. He has served his time, um, but uh, I don't think he would be the right choice. He's the main thing. The main thing that made me come to that conclusion. He said he's a recovering neocon, and I was like, oh man. And then I heard his explanation on it, right? And his explanation wasn't good enough. He said, I'm a recovering neocon, and I really don't want to go to war. I don't see where war is where it's at, more or less, right? And I was like, that's not good enough. Somebody once wise said, anyone who wants to go to war is a madman, and they obviously do not know the toll that war takes. And he's been to war. He's been to Iraq and Afghanistan. He's been under fire. He's decorated for being in firefights, right? He knows what it's like. I don't know to what extent, but he's at the root of the matter. He is still a neocon, and a neocon is lusty for war. And this cabinet that Donald Trump is making is full of them. They can taste it. The neocons and Republicans have been wanting to go after Iran forever. Forever they've been wanting to go. And that's an old mission. That's an old mission that hasn't been accomplished yet. And I hope it never becomes accomplished. America needs to isolate. America needs to be isolationist, like we were intended to be. Live in freedom on our own land. But that will never happen because the military-industrial complex is what it is. It is a giant behemoth of a beast, a nasty beast, and it consumes all within its perimeter. And it lays to waste both young and old. And it does not discriminate. Men, women, and children across the globe are affected by it. Hundreds of thousands of people have died in Ukraine. Hundreds of thousands of people have died in the Palestinian conflict, in Gaza, Lebanon, Syria, Yemen. When will it stop? And it's all at the behest of Israel. And this is somebody who believes in Israel with all his heart. So I would have to say no. He would not make a good Secretary of Defense. But knowing the way that the political beast is, the political machine that is paid and bought for by the Zionists, they're going to nominate him. And we're going to go to war. So your sons and daughters that are in the military, or to the young men and women that are in the military, prepare yourselves. Prepare yourselves, because they are going to put you in a kinetic situation. They're going to put you there. And you're going to be outnumbered. You're going to be outflanked. And they're going to be home stateside, getting fat off the steak and wine that they devour every day. And the devoted patriot love of the country in your heart, the love of your families, to protect, to serve the country, it'll be all for naught. You'll die on foreign soil. That's just the fact. We haven't won. America is not in the business of winning. We haven't won since World War II. And we wouldn't have won have it not been for Russia. They were our greatest friend, our greatest ally. And the bastards in Washington and the politicians worldwide turned their face from our greatest friend. And have steadily tried to pit us against them. We, the people, the American people, we're the ones who suffer the most by the actions of these whores in Washington. Because when I look at them and I look at their faces, they're all whores. Fat, bloated whores that continually sell themselves to the highest bidder. And that's a crying shame.